Liam Kumar Day effect. Not really happening.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I've rang up Mendon already said he could make it.
Don't take this home.
Phil, Predator guy, always manages to do well. But he is a shocking personality. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was previous.
That wasn't Michelle Mendon.
Right, you know, I'm a tired Jack! I'm a fucking tired!
Hello and welcome to another episode of the LOC Report. The co-host is back from the valleys and week one is in the books. How's it going, Chris?
Absolutely brilliant. Yes, cannot argue. It's going all right with me. So yeah, good to be back. So this is the season in full swing now. So
absolutely. For half the teams, the dream of a perfect season is dashed. And for the other half, off to a good start. So we will just get straight into it because we know that's what you're all here for. So we'll go into it with the league news. You know what? I changed the way I do the intro and I still get it wrong. Here we go. Yes, and you may notice the jingle sound a bit different. I did a bit of quality control and listened back to last week's episode, and I'm glad I did, because the previews of the games were nearly unlistenable, because even though I turned down the volume to account for the jingle while I'm talking, apparently it doesn't come that way across on the stream, so back to the old chestnut with the phone, but that's fine. And the news, so we will give you the quick hits on transactions. Obviously we'll cover injuries, as in when we see it on the transactions or in the game. I've pulled out a few here, Chris, because there's always some interesting ones in week one. This guy, after a 2-touchdown performance, Naeem Hines, was surely going to be added. Little did we know it would be by the Jonathan Taylor owner, and also for $40. What do you make of it, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, $40 is a lot. I mean, yeah, it's all well and good after week one to look at somebody and say, you know what, that's it, they are absolutely going to be the guy, but you just don't know in Indianapolis. And for me, he did look very lively and certainly well used. I mean, if he's going to be used like Austin Eckler has been for many years for the Chargers, then probably worth the investment. However, that's it. We mustn't forget that he is still Naeem Hines. And that is a big investment to make for one player at this stage of the season. So, whether or not your old man's sort of thinking to himself, that's it, season may not last past December, let's just get everything out of the way now, I'm going to be the halfway leader, then maybe. But
it's an interesting one, because like you said, he's already got the better half of that backfield in Jonathan Taylor. Look, a guy can, he's basically James White of seasons old, where he's going to have to be uber productive to get into the relevance in our league, or certainly on a regular basis. So yeah, massive gamble. And the next guy on my list, you could maybe even argue would have been a better target for bare necessities, given they have Cam Akers, and that was Malcolm Brown, added by Ixam for $27, and they dropped James White. What do you make of him?
Yeah, I mean, dropping James White is certainly the thing to do. I think that is extremely crowded in there. However, that's it. Going from one multi-headed beast to another. I mean, yes, he's certainly gone well in the first week. That's a big score that he's put together. 23 points, but whether or not that's going to be consistent throughout the year is remains to be seen. But yeah, he's certainly not the only option that they've got for the LA Rams. Is he a better option than what they put back into the waivers? Yes, almost certainly.
Yeah.
But another big investment early on.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one I notched down here was Cam Newton. Finds his way back onto a LOC team for Sterling Shepard for $15 by me. What do you make of the Cam Newton ad?
Well, Cam Newton looked very sharp week one, and I think that he hasn't looked that sharp for a long time. He certainly took the ball by the horns and was the focal point of that offense. So I've seen no reason why he shouldn't be starting as a fantasy QB in our league. I think that if you have that type of player, then he's always going to do something in the game. and you can tell that the offense is sort of being moulded around him as well. So perhaps he's not going to be quite as much out of his comfort zone as he looked in Carolina at times. So yeah, he's not going to be asked to do too much or too little. I don't think. I think he's going to be just right. And he certainly looks like he's the man. So
well, yeah.
Worth an ad.
As we saw on Sunday, what a difference it is when you have coaches in Bill Belichick and McDaniels tailor-making an offense to you, unlike maybe, say, a Bruce Arians, who does not take that approach, and what different results it does yield.
Indeed.
So, and the Patriots also have the added bonus of, like you said, when he was in Carolina, used a bit differently, and arguably, due to the health reasons, was obviously asked to do less of what made him Cam. Patriots don't have that reservation because it's a 1-year contract. They don't need to worry about his future, so they can just get him doing whatever they want him to do. And if it wins games, it wins games. Next ad I have here is Benny Snell for N'Keal Harry for $15. And I was a bit surprised not to see you do this one, Chris, given you are the James Conner owner. But talk me through this ad, and maybe that'll understand why you didn't do it yourself.
Yeah, outbid.
Outbid, okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he came in the wake of Connor's injury, and took everything. The sort of volume that I was expecting Connor to have. But yeah, he's definitely valuable ad. I think dropping in N'Keal Harry for him.
Yeah,
he's a brainer at this point. And for $15, I think that is better value, perhaps, because that if Connor can't go again, or certainly can't go as fully again, then you're going to see a lot of him. It is still a multi-headed beast when Connor is injured. Yeah. In Pittsburgh. However, it seems as though he's the biggest head of the lot. So I think for a couple of weeks, potentially that could work really well.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin said he is leaving the light on for James Conner for Sunday, whatever that means, but obviously it doesn't sound like a long-term thing. And like you said, what we've seen with James Conner in seasons past is he gets injured, it's inevitable, but he still leads the backfield, he just doesn't take on that bell cow role. So, as you say, Snell might have an uptick in usage for the next couple of weeks or so. The next one I had picked out here was our first contender for worst roster move of the season. In this early stage, it was Jason Myers for Keamy Fairbairn, which is absolutely fine unless you're going to sling $5 on it like Bare Necessity did.
I mean, big spender this week. He still spent half his budget in 2 guys. One's a kicker.
Yeah, so $5 on a kicker is...
I'm not sure anyone's going after him, to be honest.
No, and even less so for $5. And it wasn't spoken on the pod last week because we did it pre the Thursday night game, of course, but... I think it was I was talking to Mike and we were saying, or it may have even been you, Chris, how Sammy Watkins obviously had a good game Thursday night. Inevitably someone was going to get lulled into the Sammy Watkins week 1 good performance trap. But as in the same vein as what you've been saying, it is an upgrade over what they are dropping, as the Tuckfards added Sammy Watkins, dropping Tyler Eifert for $3. Just give a quick hit on that one.
I mean, Tyler Eifert should never have been drafted in the first place.
No.
So perhaps that's right or wrong, but for $3, he's only going to drop him again in a couple of weeks when he returns back to being Sammy Watkins. Yeah,
indeed. That is all the transactions I have for you. We will be doing Debate Corner at the end of the show, so don't worry. But we will go straight into week 1 then. Fast-paced show so far. Let's see how long we can keep it up. And we have the marquee matchup. It was a close game. Perhaps not the highest scoring and maybe not living up to the expectation of it, but we had Ford Flyers taking on the Tuckfards in the rematch of the playoffs last year. In week 1, Ford Flyers looked to defeat Phil for a second time in as many weeks practically in the LOC calendar, while the Tuckfards looked for revenge for the Brashard Perriman game, and revenge they did get in a close game, 88-85. Looking down the lineups, both quarterbacks performed excellently for either team. Lamar Jackson notching 33.5 for Flyers and Mahomes 26 for the Tuckfards, but that's largely where the good things end. On the Tuckfards side, DeAndre Hopkins with 151 yards set the Tuckfards on their path, and the Ravens D, really the only other player bringing it home for them with 16 points. On the other side, Forge Flyers, Derrick Henry performed, of course he would. He got 13.1 points. And then the Steelers D with 12. Outside of that, no other 10-plus point performers in the game. Phil takes this one, making the all-time record between these two. Bear with me, dear listeners, while my Google Sheet slowly decides to load. Here we go. Finally. Forge Flyers are now 10-7 all time against the Tuckfards. Actually, I believe that is 10-8. I'm not sure. This is synced. So let's go with 10-7. Yeah, it's probably 10-7.
It sounds better.
I just got to pop up for a sec, but we will leave you in Chris's capable hands to take you through the marquee matchup.
Yes, absolutely. The points difference is not only gutting, but also quite well deserved. From my point of view, there wasn't a lot to shout about at all. And although Lamar Jackson turned up in a big way, for many years I've always said that you cannot overshadow performances by just having a QB alone. And in this instance, I'm going to eat my words and use them against myself, because after Lamar, you look here, Derrick Henry scoring 13 points is great, but after that, Connor gets injured, DJ Moore underwhelming, Chark underwhelming, McLaurin underwhelming. Suckett misses the chance to win the game with that 50-yarder that got tipped. I think that if there are a few more touchdowns there, that's the problem. Is that it was bereft of touchdowns. A few more go that way. If Connor doesn't go down as well, then it's a more straightforward path to victory for me. But that hasn't happened, and yeah, we say you have to give Phil a little bit more credit there. So the Ravens D is a decent pickup. Hopkins is going to be electric all year, and Mahomes doing what he does best. So yeah, it's not ideal. And you look here, 21 points on the bench, as Ben has just mentioned to me, isn't also really what you want at this point of the year. However, it is week one. We have a lot of receivers, and it's time to crack on into the week two. What I will say is, as well, as that Phil's left a couple of big guys on the bench, I would say, particularly I don't know why you wouldn't play Juju against the Giants. And that to me is a more obvious play. You play him certainly over a guy like Singletary or who is in the backfield committee. And potentially over Sonny Michel as well. Adrian Peterson is a big one that I'm a bit surprised
the
about.
Eternal.
The Lions are seemingly falling back on him as opposed to either of their other two. I know DeAndre Swift scored a touchdown, but yeah, Adrian Peterson seems to be alive and kicking in Detroit. So yeah, we'll see what happens to the rest of the year. And if he plays those two guys, this is absolutely out of the distance for me. So maybe that makes you feel a bit better. But yeah, I have to say the loss of Connor was the defining point.
Yeah, you got to think if he's playing a full game. I don't know what Benny Snell did in the game, but I'm going to guess he got about 30 yards because Connor did leave pretty early in the game. Me and Ollie both picked your team last week. It was square. We talked on whatever Monday evening, and it was squared away for you to make the Monday night comeback with the 3 you had left, but just wasn't to be in week one. But hey, it's still early and plenty of time
left.
Plenty of time. The next game we'll take a look at then is bucking the trend against Pakistan. Ooh. Two coaches looking to get the season off on a good start and hoping to have a good season this year. One of those very much succeeded in that, while the other will have to wait at least another week. Bucking the Trend defeated Pakistan 117 to 58, and they did even have the highest score in the week. Bucking the Trend did, that is. Matt Ryan got 28 for them. Josh Jacobs erupted for 32 points against the porous Carolina defense. Tyreek Hill got 11, DK Metcalf got 16, and the Chargers defense got 15. On the other side of the ball, Drew Brees got 18 for Pakistan, but nothing else really went right. Michael Thomas, it was found, suffered a high ankle sprain, leading to his 1.7 point performance, and there was no other player over 10 points. So Bucking the Trend take this one, and with that they also achieved their first victory against Pakistan. They now sit at his record against Pakistan, is now 1-2 all time. Chris, what a day for Mike.
Yes, very much so. Big problems for Pat though. Before we get on to Mike and how good he was, I was very positive about Pat's team before the beginning of the season, and I have to say that based on that, and especially with Michael Thomas now going down for a long time, I got to cool that off a little bit. I have to say that some of the matchups there were not ideal, especially for Drew Brees. But you look and you have to look at it and think to yourself, well, if that's the case, then where are you going to go from here? Especially when we look at the replacement for Michael Thomas. I mean, you look here and you think, well, is Darius Slayton going to do that every week?
He needs Courtland Sutton to come back and to live up to that draft potential, because he was one of the guys that was a bit, he was a 5th rounder based on what he did last year, but there is still some doubt, certainly after what we saw of the Denver offense on Monday night.
Absolutely, he could play his third running back and play Josh Kelly, but look, I just don't think that it looks nearly as strong without that first, second round, or whatever you really want to call him.
Sure.
It's certainly a weakened team, but he had the same problems as I did, where his team was just sort of bereft of touchdowns. But it wouldn't have made a massive amount of difference, obviously, because of the amount of points that got put up against him. And let's be honest, this team looks very well balanced. Matt Ryan and the Falcons are going to be pretty electric all year. Josh Jacobs looks like an absolute stud, albeit, yes, Carolina D didn't play well at all. However, it doesn't matter. He's carried on where he left off last year, and he is one of those guys you can say is a genuine bell cow in the NFL. When you've got receivers like Hill and Metcalf, particularly playing with the quarterbacks that they do, there's always a chance that they're going to go big, and that's what happened there. And the Chargers did good matchup against a rookie quarterback in his first game. So it played the field well. I mean, and when you have a team where one player scores 31 points and the other player scores very close to 30 points, you'd expect them to win the game. The bench is nothing to write home about. There's 9 points across 5 players there. So he certainly
very top heavy team.
Yes, absolutely. But when they're on, they're on. And if we talk about maybe a boom and bust team this year, this might be the one.
Certainly. And that may also be a career high in points scored for Mike as well. We know he didn't do too good last season in that regard. So great day all round by Mike. Our next game then, we will go on to Demaryius Thomas's friends against You Are Gold. In the Name Change Bowl, Demaryius Thomas and friends played You Are Gold, and that's what they're called for the moment at least, in week 1, and Demaryius Thomas and friends took it 109 to 96, and the auto draft team seemingly pulls through yet again, perhaps even more so against all the odds this time. Aaron Rodgers had a renaissance with his 39 points in week 1. Alvin Kamara got 19 and Aaron Jones got 14, driving that victory for Ross. On the other side for your goal, Kyler Murray had a nice day with 28 points. Kenyon Drake did okay with 13. Adam Thielen benefited from garbage time massively with 25. And Marquise Brown got 10, but it wasn't enough. And they fell to Demarius Thomas and friends. History of this matchup all time now. You Are Gold is 3-3 all time, so Ross has tied the series. Is this a flash in the pan by Ross, or is this more to come? Is my question.
I don't think so. The reliance on Aaron Rodgers to score 40 points every game is going to be very difficult. Although he did look extremely good for a guy that's supposedly on his way out.
That Vikings D is definitely not the Vikings D of old, though.
Absolutely
is worth noting too.
They got burned. I think as well that Le'Veon Bell's injury is probably doing him a favour. Because it is tempting to play a guy like that every week.
Yeah.
But he hasn't looked the same in 2 seasons that he's been with the Jets. So, if now that he's gone and down, and presumably Mike Evans comes back into the team, he's definitely got another weapon to use. However, I just don't think that week in, week out, it could be 20 points less than that. Maybe Mike Evans might chip in with a handy 10 or 15 or whatever. But yeah, I think that overall we probably shouldn't expect more 100-point weeks to come. I'm happy to be proven wrong on that one. but yeah, with the inclusion of someone like Evans, it's definitely a good side. It's not one you want to come up against.
Yeah, and he was obviously nursing that hamstring. Was not even thought to possibly even play in that game, but he didn't do too well. But better things to come.
Absolutely. Well, yeah.
Hopefully.
So on the other side, and bearing in mind that the Cardinals are playing the 49ers and they're quite potent defense.
Yeah.
I thought they
terrific
played really reasonably well.
Yeah.
Obviously got the win. Kyler Murray is everything that you want as a fantasy QB this year, I think. Especially now he's got the weapons around him. Kenyon Drake will be reliable. Thielen's the number one. Marquise Brown's boom and bust. But hey, I think that You Are Gold will certainly be the one. Should things happen in their favour, that will be the dark horse, perhaps.
Yeah, there's definitely things to like there. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely right. And the one thing that I don't like, though, I know that the Browns were god awful on Sunday. But the fact is that Kareem Hunt is now a much bigger part of that offense than anybody thought might happen. Does bring.
Perhaps that's because they were playing from behind, though. It's kind of like every team has that, isn't it? Because
there is that.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence with this because I think that could be the could ruin some value there for Chubb, but I'm happy to be proved wrong again as I am with Ross's team. So yeah, I think on paper these are two reasonably even sides.
Yeah,
but
no, I think
different on this occasion.
Yeah, indeed. Our next game then, and I should say we do actually have 5 people watching by the look, so if you would like to comment along on the YouTube stream, please do. We will interact with you during the show. But anyway, back to this. We've got Bare Necessities against the Dream Team next. Come on. It would help if I could just hit the play button instead of moving to halfway through the jingle. There we go. Bare Necessities took on the Dream Team in Week 1, and based on the Thursday preview, this was going to be a seal clubbing, as Bare Necessities looked to be a slow burner, but it did not turn out that way, as this was probably the game of the week. The Dream Team took it 115 to 110. Looking down the lineups, again, both quarterbacks did absolutely fantastic in this one. Russell Wilson getting 40 points for the Dream Team. Josh Allen getting 32 for Bare Necessities. Back on the Dream Team, though, David Johnson lives. He got 17 points. Ezekiel Elliott, of course, still lives. He got 25. And Matt Prater got 12. That was enough for the Dream Team. On the other side, Melvin Gordon had a nice day with 13 points. Dalvin Cook also did with 21. Travis Kelce had 11. And the Saints defense against Tom Brady, got 18 points. That leaves the matchup history in this one now between Bare Necessities and the Dream Team as 9-8 in favour of Bare Necessities. Good game by all accounts, Chris.
Very. Very good game. And you'd expect it to be a good game with some of the names on the show here. You know, if there was any game that meant that Dave carried on what he was doing from last year, which was scoring really good points yet still getting beaten, this is the one. You know, he must be kicking himself that he didn't start someone else other than Devontae Parker. But hey, you know,
Alan Lazard springs to mind. Ollie called on the pod that he was forced to start one of those two, and 50-50, and it fell the wrong way.
Absolutely right. So yeah, maybe not this week. As I say, he's gone big on Naeem Hines as well, so you think he'd be starting somewhere in there. Just which of the running backs is he going to drop him for? But yeah, you cannot argue with a result like that. You know, Josh Allen is, although he's playing the Jets and the Jets were hopeless. You know, he is a surefire fantasy QB now because of what he can bring. The running backs are solid. You know, the D had a great day against what is quite a difficult offense, or should be anyway. Yes, when they get up and running, I'm sure they will be, but not for now. And the supporting cast, well, it's all a bit meh. Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce, you know, so he's a favourite for better necessities. But let's talk about the dream team, because we talked about the difference between the two teams in the last one, and I think here it's a very similar setup in the sense that the top three has just outmuscled the top three on the other side.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, Wilson, Johnson, and Elliott. You know, they've all combined. I mean, Wilson was just absolutely magic on Sunday. You know, and taking a few punts there. David Johnson, as you say, does live indeed, and he's going to live all year because it's a career move for his head coach.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Who are the same person?
Yeah, they do wear the same hat. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. You know what you're going to get from Zeke, and going forward, the thing with this team is, this is why I was quite excited about them at the start of the year, is that you're only going to see players improve. You know, you'd like to think that Chris Godwin would improve while Brady gets used to the system that he's playing under now. You know, he's a touchdown away from having a great day. You'd think that George Kittle would have had a good day if it wasn't for for an injury. And look at Deshaun Jackson in there. Well, you know, I think all round it wasn't that great, and Washington stifled them, which is something that you haven't been able to say very much for the last few years. So yeah, the 49ers will have better days when they're not playing against such a potent attack inside as the Cardinals. So
definitely,
yeah, I think 115 there. Although the top three seems quite heavy at the moment, could well be shared around a lot more, and that's really positive for Viv. I think for your dad, you know, having one of those rookies in there, particularly Lazard, I think he's going to have to play him this week, and then deciding what he's going to do with his recent acquisition in Naeem Hines is going to be very interesting. But they're certainly not going to go away. I think with any, you know, top four as we see there, Allen Gordon, Cook, and Kelce, they're all going to keep them in it throughout the year. So yeah, two very, very consistent teams here. However, I think that the dream team probably were well deserved and will be the one to look at through the rest of the year.
Okay, there you go. Next game then, we have Gridiron Gang against Ixan. The most one-sided game in LOC history took place in week 1. It was Gridiron Gang versus Ixan, and well, what else is new? Death, Taxes, and Ixan beating Gridiron Gang. They do so yet again, 110 points to 83. Looking down the lineup, neither of the quarterbacks really fired too well in this one. Dak just about got 20 and Wentz got 17. But for Ixan, Christian McCaffrey did Christian McCaffrey things with 25 points. Chris Carson caught 2 touchdowns en route to 19 points. And Mark Andrews also caught 2 for 18. The Patriots D also chipped in 15 for them. On the other side, Robert Woods got 12, Will Fuller got 11, and Robbie Gill got 10. The other scores weren't particularly low, but just not enough. And Gridiron Gang fell to Ixan. Gridiron Gang all-time are now, I believe, 4-14 against Ixan. Chris, what do you make of this game? Yeah, I know. 10 straight games. I would have to get Ben 10 straight times, and I would only tie the record between me and him.
Jeez, you better hope he's in your division one day. Yeah, I mean, for you, you've put together a nice, solid, consistent team. However, much in the same way as what my team lacked, your team lacked.
No TDs outside of the quarterback.
Exactly. That's the problem. Is that if your TD count is low, your score's going to be low, and that's what happened here.
Yeah.
There isn't much to write home about on paper, but actually, when you look at the yardage that these receivers are getting, you could look at it and go, well, actually, it wasn't that bad. You were lacking a real performance from Saquon there as well. So, better luck next week on the touchdown count. But certainly, if your receivers are going for 112, 105, and 92 yards without touchdowns, that's pretty good.
And that was also without my third round pick, Kenny Golladay, of course, missed the game with the hamstring.
Yes,
yeah.
True that. Obviously, nothing too much to write about on the bench, but Zach Moss could be a real factor as the year progresses. On the other side, Ben might well have found himself, and this is good for him. Not so clever for me, because this is what could have been. But he's found himself quite a potent running back mix again. If you assume that he'll play Raheem Mostert in this week.
God knows why he didn't play. Me and Ollie said on the pod, why is Kerryon Johnson in there? It's got to change. And that was just like a few days after the Peterson thing. But everybody saw it coming, except Ben, apparently.
Absolutely. Well, no.
Lucky it didn't cost him, though, luckily.
It didn't. No, keep faith in what you drafted largely. But no, if something like that happens, if your number one running back turns into a committee back just like that, then do what you got to do. But if you assume Mostert's in there, McCaffrey, Carson, and Mostert as a three-headed monster in there is quite potent. And to be honest with you, he could play whoever he wanted. Other than that, Dak's going to be reasonably good, all year in terms of fantasy points anyway, not necessarily real life. Mark Andrews was a bit of a beast on the day, benefited from a couple of touchdowns. But that's what he's there for. Yeah,
I saw an interesting stat on him as well, because he was quite banged up last year, and obviously there was Hayden Hurst and Max Williams, was it? I think the other tight end. It was kind of like a tight end rotation, but his snap count in week 1 was far higher than it had been at any point over the last year, so that's obviously a good sign of things to come.
Yeah, absolutely, and big red zone target for them. Obviously something they're looking to do. So obviously a good pick if that pays off. And how Jamison Crowder's got to 17.5 points on the bench as well.
80-yard touchdown, that. Pretty spectacular. Outside of that, wasn't doing much, but hey, they all count.
Yeah, but again, it's a very dangerous team once more for Ben, and he'll look to do the same thing again next week based on those 3 running backs that he's got. Yeah.
Okay, then the last game of last week, it was the runner-up for the marquee matchup. It's the rematch of Corona Bowl 10, Tom's Tyrants against Detonators. Tom's Tyrants and Detonators squared off. It's a recent matchup that has a lot of memory for how close it was. This one not quite as close, but still a very good game that went in favour of Detonators, 111-97. Looking down the lineups, Deshaun Watson went for 23, Julio Jones went for 16, Clyde Edwards-Helaire went for 20, Calvin Ridley went for 25, so that's combined 41 points by Falcons receivers if you're counting. Harrison Butker got 10 and the Bills D got 12, so a solid team performance all round. On the other side, much of the same, just not quite enough for Tom's Tyrants. Tom Brady garbage timed his way to 24 points. Devontae Adams got 28, and Todd Gurley got 12, and Will Lutz got 10, but it wasn't enough. So Detonators takes this one. Oops, don't know what I've done there. And the history of this matchup is now 8-10, still in favour of Tom's Tyrants. Chris, quick takeaways from this game?
Well, when what we can tell you is that when the Falcons are flying, the Detonators will fly too.
Indeed.
We saw a very similar thing a couple of years ago when Dave went massive on the Packers, and it took one injury to absolutely destroy their season. So enjoy it while it lasts. If something happens to Matt Ryan, God forbid, then this team is on the downer. But until that happens, I think that they're certainly going to be pumping in the numbers every week.
Yeah.
Because you know, those two receivers are absolutely outstanding, and they are last. If we're talking about last year, we're talking Godwin and Evans. Well, I think Ridley and Jones are the same thing. Obviously, Clyde looked unbelievable in the first outing for him. And that's not going to change, especially in that offense and with who he's playing with and who he's playing under, more to the point. A couple of stinkers from Boyd and Beckham, but
I think
play on.
Yeah, better days ahead for Beckham. Boyd remains
very
to
much
be
so.
seen.
Yeah, the Browns were terrible, but at the same time, they were playing against arguably the number one defense in the league this year as well. So, certainly for that. So they're going to be on. He's going to be on the up. And Deshaun Watson does Deshaun Watson things. Very solid, consistent performance as you expect. On the other side, yes, that's it. You have to look at the middle three there. The Boston Scott, Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson. Now, yes, somehow Mitchell Trubisky somehow managed to win out of his arse. I'm not entirely sure how. I'm not
/ a complete choke job by the Lions.
It's it again.
Yep.
But it shouldn't have been allowed to happen, and yet, despite the fact that they're coming from behind for most of the game, Allen Robinson scored 74 yards and no touchdown, which is an issue. Keenan Allen's playing on a weaker offense this year, shall we say, with a weaker QB no matter who plays.
And Mike Williams was back, which probably ate into his workload a bit too.
No doubt, but he's certainly taken a down tick because of the lack of a viable QB, I think, this year. So what concerns me a little bit is that obviously Devontae Adams will score 27 points, which does smooth out that a little bit. And Gurley is playing in a, shall we say, pass first offense. He's not going to get used as much as he perhaps wants to be.
Certainly, if they're falling behind a lot as well, they're given his health concerns, they're more likely to just use a different back in the passing game.
That's it. So I think in some ways that's probably flattered Tom slightly. However, the one thing I think to focus on is perhaps that second running back. Is Boston Scott enough to be able to propel you to the playoffs? Well,
that was the Miles Sanders injury. You've got to think when Sanders is back in, and obviously he got injured himself in the game, which partially led to that low performance.
I get it, but that's it. While he's not there, it's going to be an uphill battle for him. So, that's it. So, but Ollie's team was absolutely brilliant. And, I'll be wary of this to say if the Falcons do not fly on the day, then Ollie won't either.
Yes, yes, indeed. So we'll take a look at the standings and the milestone stuff now. So in the Southampton division, it's actually quite neat. I'm pretty sure. We do. We have 2 1-0 teams in each division and 2 0-1 teams. So it couldn't be more split, despite it being an inter-division week. So the Detonators and the Tuckfuds sit at 1-0 atop the Southampton division, with the UR Golden Pedestal both losing. Bucking the trend sits at the number 1 seed for the first time in his career. It is only week 1, mind, but still impressive no less. And Ixan right behind him there, with Ben Acestes 0-1 and Forge Fries at 0-1. Then in the Winchester division, the Dream Team leading that up at 1-0 on points. Ross right behind at 1-0, Demaris and Thomas and Friends, then Tom's Tyrants and Gridiron Gang 0-1 apiece as well. Looking at the stats all time, let's just bring up the win-loss active stats. Here we go. So, any nice round numbers we can bring for you today? Oh, you still there, Chris? Yes, you are still there.
I'm still here.
Don't know what happened there. That's fine. So, in the nothing interesting in the win column, in the loss column, you have fallen back to 500 all time, Chris, with your 80th career loss. That's okay.
We know what that means.
Yeah. Looking in the regular season column, Pat lost, didn't he? So he's notched his 40th career loss. Ben, didn't mean to do that. Ben won, which means he got his 80th regular season win. Congratulations, Ben. And Phil won as well, didn't he? So no nice round numbers there. So we'll just then go straight into next week's matchup. No power rankings as yet, but just keep an eye out for those, as they should be dropping shortly. Chris, we have to pick a Week 2 marquee matchup. The games on the slate are Gridiron Gang against Bucking the Trend, Ixan against the Detonators, Bare Necessities against the Tuck Files, Demarius Thomas and Friends against Padistan, Tom's Tyrants against You Are Gold, and the Dream Team against Forge Flyers. Anything jumping out there for you?
I think it's Ixan versus Bedetonators this week, Dave.
Okay, let's go with it then. So the marquee matchup this week is Ixan versus Bedetonators. Ixan take on Bedetonators in week 2 of the LOC season. Both teams coming in off of a win with a good amount of points scored, and it's projected to be a close one. Excuse me, 95 to 93 in favour of Ixan. Looking down the lineup for Ixan, Raheem Mostert comes into the lineup. Why wasn't he in there already? As does Jamison Crowder in favour of Darren Waller and Kerryon Johnson. So Ixan is trotting out 31 personnel this week, 3 running backs, 1 tight end and a receiver. On the other side, the Detonators, they are unchanged as yet for the weekend. In terms of injuries, John Brown has a foot injury, the new acquisition for Ixan. Other than that, I think there is a clean bill of health for everyone else. Chris, please preview the game for us.
Well, that's it. I mean, this should be an intriguing affair here, Nate, because not only has Bedetonators got what could be yet another shootout on the cards with their receivers playing Dallas in Dallas, then Ben also has some intriguing running back affairs as well. So let's start from the top. I think that Watson and Prescott, start with the QBs, of course. Watson does have definitely the difficult matchup here. So we saw how Baltimore absolutely took apart Baker Mayfield last week. Sean Watson is definitely a higher caliber than that.
Yeah.
But they are the number 1 defense in the league. On the other side, Dak is playing a reasonably vulnerable Falcons D. This is a game that could go to to and from. They lost their first game. They're going to want a massive performance in this game, especially at home. It's the same for Matt Ryan as well, in the sense that really, although the points were massive, they did get dominated by Seattle, and to go away to prove a point in Dallas prime time is what you want. So those receivers are going to see plenty of targets. Otherwise, let's move to the sole running back on the Detonators and the 3 running backs, no less, for Ixan. And I think that Clyde will once again flourish. They're playing the Chargers. Yes, they had a decent week last week. However, this is quite a different prospect playing Andy Reid's Chiefs, and certainly. I think if he's using the same sort of way as last week in that offense, he's going to have a big day. McCaffrey against Tampa Bay, I worry a little bit here because, yes, although he is... They
did a good job of shutting him down last season.
Yes,
and in week 1 they showed they're still pretty good against the run too.
Yeah, that's it. They are a decent defense, and they're playing away, and they didn't look unbelievably convincing in the first game. He wasn't used in the same sort of way as he was last year, I found, and I think that Teddy Bridgewater is more likely to use his receivers, especially ones that can lengthen the field, like we saw Robbie Anderson in the first week. So, but there's no doubt he's still going to put up good numbers. Chris Carson against New England and Mostert against the Jets. Well, I think Mostert against the Jets is definitely the better matchup there. We saw that they got mauled last week. I don't think they're going to change in the space of a week. No. It should be a reasonably easy San Francisco win, and we know that they like to rely on the run. So, points there as well. What's more interesting is that he's brought Jamison Crowder into the lineup. Yes, he scored big points last week, but against quite a tough defense. I know they're playing at home, and they did absolutely stink on offense, but he was the number 1 target and the only bright light. So I'm really interested to see what he does there. And can Mark Andrews repeat his performance last week? Who knows? the other side, so there's obviously the Cleveland-Cincinnati Ohio grudge match going on. So yes, that's it. But as you say, I think there'll be better times for Odell going ahead. And for the defenses, well, I'd much prefer the Bills against Miami in Miami than I would the Patriots in Seattle playing Russell Wilson at home.
Indeed.
So there are things to like and dislike massively, but I do think that once again it could be a battle between the might of the receivers on Ollie's team and the might of the running backs on Ben's and the quarterback to sort of decide it between the two. And I think that Dak will do that. So, about a winner then? I can't really look past Ollie's team because I think that they have the most consistent performers. Yes, Ben's got the stars, and I think that if running back wise they can get it together, then I think that they're going to be difficult to beat. However, I do think that Ollie's team has the potential to put a lot of points on the board early. Okay. So, I think in that sense, I'm going with them. Okay. Well, I should have said as well in the preview of the game, but Detonators are 7-6 all time against Ixan. And it's an interesting one, you're right, because it's a different ideology. We have 31 personnel going up against 10 personnel, which is 1 running back, 4 receivers. Look, you mentioned Ben's team. They've got that. It's. I think it's the Holy Trinity on steroids, like you said. It's the Holy Quattro between Mostert, Carson, McCaffrey, and Prescott, based on the early viewing. That 5th spot, I think, is going to be an ongoing issue for Ben all season long, unless he can get something via the waiver, because it's going to be Crowder, Cook, Brown, or Waller all season long, outside of someone else coming in. So none of those are particularly reliable options, I don't think. But when you've got those 4, maybe it doesn't matter so much. On the other side, you already mentioned Ollie's got a lot of consistency there. It's kind of the opposite thing on its head. It's Tyler Boyd and Odell Beckham. We need to see it, I think, from them. This obviously profiles as a much better game for both of them. Joe Burrow has got his first start out of the way. He looked pretty good. AJ Green is back, but I think Tyler Boyd can still be pretty serviceable, and Beckham, you've got to think, should perform better in a better matchup. But just based on what we saw from Ben's team in week 1, I get the feeling, like you said, that with the being so reliant on the Falcons' receiving core, I think Ollie's team does have a bit of a tendency to probably fluctuate a bit more. Granted, those two is the best receiver duo in the league, and you've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well, but that is a tough Chargers run defense. Baltimore playing Deshaun Watson, you already said about that. I'm not too worried about that either, but I think the easier route for me is through Ixan this week, just because you can see the volume that's there, and you can just see some of those guys, like you already mentioned with Mostert, having a big day. So Ixan for me, but I do think it could be a close one as well, as the projections suggest. We'll go on to our next game then, and it is Bare Necessities against the Tuckfards. A matchup of 2 of the founding teams in the LOC, the Tuckfards against Bare Necessities. Tuckfards 1-0, Bare Necessities still searching for their first win of the season, and they are projected to get it, 95-90. Looking down the lineups for Bare Necessities, they look unchanged at the moment, but that will almost certainly change. Devontae Parker did pick up that hamstring injury, but apparently already practicing in full pads. The only option he has other than him is Alan Lazard. So they are sticking with their 31 personnel at the moment. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, I don't think the Tuckfards have changed either. Maybe they'll get Emmanuel Sanders into the lineup in the wake of Michael Thomas's injury. Smith-Schuster showed pretty well as well, as did Peterson, so there could be some shuffling there. But right now, 31 personnel on that side also. History of this matchup all time. Bare Necessities are, bear with me 1 second. They are 9-6 all time against the Tuckfards. Chris? Yes.
What do you think? Did Bare Necessities get their first win?
I think so. I think that if Phil doesn't change his tack, in the sense that he needs to move away from those guys that perhaps didn't perform last week in the way that he expected to, and play a few more of the percentages. Then I think that it'll be a better team. I mean, I know that Ingram and Singletary at the top are very tempting to play, but they didn't do a great deal for me last week in terms of real life performance.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've got a guy like, particularly Sanders, who's going to be playing a lot as the number one receiver now, and particularly Smith-Schuster, why would you not?
Even Adrian Peterson, the guy getting volume in that backfield.
Yeah, that's it. Why
it makes you throw up a little bit, but, ride it while it's hot.
It does a bit. But if you wanted to do that, I've got no problem with that. But, a guy like Sonny Michel, for example, is very touchdown dependent, as was proven last week. He's going to be average.
Well, all the three running backs in that lineup are, I think, you've got to say.
So when you've got firepower as he does on the bench, I think that it's probably best to change that up to improve the team. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is going to be good every week. Yes, Zach Ertz is going to get targets in the red zone. Yes, Hopkins is looks like the real deal in a new offense. However, they are playing a significantly improved defense. They are. Washington's defense is significantly improved. Is it a better unit than the 49ers last week? Perhaps not, but it did look pretty decent last week in Philadelphia. And of course, the Ravens D, but they are playing a team other than the Browns this week. So I don't expect that. On the other side, it was proven last week that Dave's team can perform, and I think that when you've got a guy like Josh Allen who's going to be able to give you consistent floor every week, Melvin Gordon who's probably good for a touchdown every week. Yes, it's quite challenging, especially in Pittsburgh against their defense. Where you could well be behind potentially because of your offense. It's not easy for a second year and a bit QB to go there. But maybe without fans, it will be slightly easier. Who knows? Dalvin Cook's a stud, Kelsey's a stud, and the thing that I always like about these matchups is that if Mahomes, plays into Kelsey, it's just going to eliminate any sort of gains. So,
sure.
Maybe that's not quite the matchup. If we assume that Devontae Parker's coming out,
I think you've got to. Tough matchup against Buffalo anyway. It's Alan Lazard against Detroit is the only option.
Oh well, that's for sure. For sure, yeah. That's the way to go. And then he's got a difficult decision between Taylor and his new acquisition Hines.
Not only that, but J.K. Dobbins seems to be the goal line back. DeAndre Swift seemed to do well as well. So the rookie running back early days looking pretty good.
There's plenty more.
Not only that as well. Yeah, take account for Melvin Gordon with Philip Lindsay getting turf toe. He's now in theory going to pick up a bit more work too.
You'd think so. So yeah, I think there's going to be again reasonably close. But I do like Dave's team. I have to say that if it wasn't for the loss last week, we'd be raving about it a bit more. So I'm picking that. I think Phil needs to make some improvements that he has to improve his team and his chance of winning this week. And he's got the players. He just needs to go bold and play them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Bare necessities for me this week quite easily, in my opinion. We saw, the two running backs there and Gordon and Cook going to do well, and for the reasons I mentioned with Gordon, even better. Allen, he seems to have dispelled any... Well, okay, he's playing the Jets. Miami is a different kettle of fish, but he has that running game, and he has shown lots of potential, so he should be good as well. Kelsey, like you said, gets the volume too, and Lazard has a pretty nice matchup against the Saints. On the other side, you already mentioned it, Mahomes is the elite option on the Tuck Pass team. Outside of that, I really like DeAndre Hopkins. I think any worries we had about him being wide receiver one, you can probably put to bed. But there is nobody else on that team you can confidently start week in, week out. Not even Zach Ertz, as we saw last week, where Dallas Goedert actually had the better day of the two. Now, given that's not going to be every week, and there are guys to like, that's not to say none of the, I actually think on the whole balance, Phil probably has a fairly deep squad. It's just they're all kind of middling options, and he's going to have a tough job on his hands to pick the right ones week in, week out, and for that reason, I'm going bare necessities too. Next game then, we have Demaryius Thomas and friends, yet to be renamed, against Pakistan. Demarius Thomas and friends and Pakistan face off in week 2. Ross is at 1-0, Pat is at 0-1. They will both be eager to defeat each other, but this has to be a historically lowly projected game, as this one is projected in Ross's favour, 81-80. What is that about? Let's take a look. Aaron Rodgers, the whole side remains unchanged on Ross's side. Le'Veon Bell will of course come out. He's now on IR. He can go on that reserve spot. And coming in, probably Mike Evans, you would have to think. He also lost Marlon Mack to that Achilles tear. So not a great week 1 for Ross. And on the other side, it's a similar story for Pat. No longer changed yet either, I think. Michael Thomas will not play due to that high ankle injury. Courtland Sutton did not play Monday night. Remains to be seen if he comes back for this week's game. So not really much to update you on, but one to change probably on each side of the ball. History of this matchup all time. Let's see if we can find one of these teams. Pakistan down there are 2 and 3 all time against Ross. Both these teams are looking a bit shaky, despite... Well, Ross had a good week 1, Pat not so much. What do you make of it?
I totally agree. Yeah, I think if you assume that Evans is coming back into Ross's team, and I don't know, I mean, if Sutton's fit, he's coming back in, I assume. Yeah,
if not, it's probably Paris Campbell or Darius Slayton, would you say?
Yeah, I'd probably play, more likely to play
Paris Campbell after what? Yeah.
So yeah, I think that if that's the case, then that's it's 3 competent receivers there. But the one thing that I am slightly concerned about, even at this early stage, is that Pat's running backs once again could be very flash in the pan. I mean, I don't think that it's going to take Mixon very long to gel with Joe Burrow, but at the same time, is that he's not being used as he should be. And David Montgomery is just playing in an offense that's just so bad. So, do I think positively about that? Probably not. Do I think that Cooper's going to be involved in a shootout? Yes. Do I think that Sutton, if he's going to be playing, is going to do anything at all? Well, it's going to be challenging against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
If it's Paris Campbell against Minnesota, it's maybe, so they did get mauled last week and they're playing at home, and Phillip Rivers does seem to like him. AJ Brown against the Jags. I mean, who knows what Jags are going to turn up this week, let's be honest. That's it, is it going to be the Jags that turned up last week, who, the semblance of a decent team, or is it just going to be that ragtag bunch of the back end of last year who let everything through? Who knows? But what I do know is that the Titans D are going to be decent against the Jags.
You would hope.
Otherwise, on the other side, I think that the 2 guys with star value, or perhaps 3 guys with star value if you can count Evans, is Rodgers against Detroit is just a surefire, absolutely quality matchup. You can't knock that.
And even if it's not, he's got Aaron Jones. If we see the old Green Bay, it's it's going to come between the 2 of them, right?
That's right, exactly. Alvin Kamara there is going to, he's going to perform once again. So he's playing the Raiders in Vegas. It's a big game. Again, really, really prime time on Monday Night Football. So there's lots to perform for there. I think once Diggs gets up and running with how it is there in Buffalo, he's going to be a surefire number 1. I think that Evans this week, I say, he has to perform better than he did last week. He had 2 yards yesterday against Lattimore, and he hates playing against Lattimore. We know the story there by now. But against Carolina, it's that type of game where he can flourish. That deep threat. So yeah, I really do think that Ross's team is in the ascendancy here, and Pat's is not, and that's why I'm going for Ross.
Okay. Yeah, it's. I think it's probably actually, the projection is low, but I think it's probably got it right. I think there's going to be an ascendancy by Pat. and probably a bit of back of coming to earth on Ross's side. As you said, he was massively buoyed by practically 40 points by Rodgers last week, and that's not going to happen every week, even against what appears to be not a great Detroit defense. But despite Pat's troubles, I think I can see an upset here. Mixon's got to be better. Chargers run D is pretty good. They've got a lot of guys in that front seven that are really good. I think, David Montgomery, maybe he's still having some of that injury hangover as well. And you already mentioned about Cooper, Brown, and probably Paris Campbell. And I just look at Ross's team outside of Rodgers, Kamara, Jones, and you can probably throw in Mike Evans there as well. It's a bit spotty. Hunter Henry, they're going to be playing catch up, but you already talked about the Chargers offense. Stephon Diggs remains to be seen. How much. Okay, they rolled it up on the Jets last week, but Miami probably a bit better, certainly. In Miami as well. So I don't know. I think it's probably going to be a bit more of a coming back to earth, and I think, while obviously losing Thomas is massive for Pat's team, there is a reason you picked his team as your favourite team coming out of the draft. And we've got to remember, it wasn't a normal week one last week. It was like pre-season and week one rolled into one. So I think there's going to be better days ahead for Pat, and I think he should hopefully pick up the win in this one. Next game then, it is, I don't know if the Winchester Bowl, are we calling this? I'm pretty sure yeah, let's go with the Winchester Bowl, why not? So it's Tom's Tyrants against You Are Gold. Tom's Tyrants face You Are Gold in the Winchester Bowl, and right now it's projected to be a stomp down, as Tom's Tyrants needs to put 2 players on his team, 91-74. Both these teams lost in week 1. Excuse me. So someone will pick up a win and someone will drop to 0-2. Barring an unforeseen tie, of course. Looking on Tom's Tyrant side, they obviously are not changed yet, but they made some roster moves. Miles Sanders should play this weekend. You've got to think he comes back into the lineup. And then, who else is it after that? Is it Henry Ruggs? Is it Antonio Gibson? Noah Fant? Brandon Cooks? I'm sure not even Tom knows at this point. On the other side for You Are Gold, let's see, they don't look changed yet. They have brought Jordan Howard into the lineup over Marquise Brown. So they are rolling out 30 personnel this week. 3 running backs, 2 receivers. Any other injuries and whatnot to note? I already mentioned Miles Sanders. Other than that, Allen Robinson's quite upset with the Bears front office over contract talks, so not likely to affect this game, but one to monitor for sure. Not seeing anything else there. I'll leave you with the matchup all time between these two, and you can get going, Chris, which is Tom's Tyrants are 4-2 all time against You Are Gold.
Well, that's it. The conundrum that Tom has is, yes, if Sanders isn't fit, who does he play? And I think that you alluded to that, is that it really is a bit of a muddy ground there. Personally, I think that Antonio Gibson is a really interesting option, especially now as they don't have too many options at that position, and that Ron Rivera has been hyping him up throughout the whole pre-season. And
Peyton Barber, but Peyton Barber, while he got those 2 touchdowns, you look at his box score, it was the most Peyton Barber rushing line ever.
This is the thing. He jumped through the pack on 2 touchdowns.
And we got to remember as well that this was a game where Washington were in it for the whole game practically, which I don't think is going to happen a lot. We saw what Arizona did to San Francisco last week. I think they're going to be losing more likely in this one. So, they're going to get the more dynamic back on the field.
Yeah, that's it, no doubt. And they want to use him more as well, because I think there's an appetite to do so. Obviously I wouldn't play Cooks against Baltimore. I think Henry Ruggs showed glimpses of ability, but
against Marshawn Lattimore, yeah.
Exactly.
I think it might.
Yeah,
I think it might have to be Cooks, just based on the fact you got to think Texans are going to be losing, so at least they're throwing.
Possibly. possibly. I don't like any other matchup in there. And the Browns D, I think, presumably are going to be coming in too. So
Yeah.
So trying to go for the Joe Burrow thing. So yeah, I think bringing those two guys in, you're going to get a reasonably solid team. But again, it's all about the top two and whatever Gurley does against Dallas. And I think that Brady's going to have a better day, no doubt. And Adams is going to still be the number one guy in what we expect to be a bit of a landslide. But do I like Allen against the Chiefs? I think Tyrod Taylor's going to get eaten alive by that Chiefs D personally. Do I like Allen Robinson in with the QB that he's playing with? Not really. So there's a lot of meh over there, I have to say. Whilst you are gold, I do think that bringing Jordan Howard in is
perplexing. Yeah,
it's mind-boggling, to be honest. I don't really get that. You've got plenty of other good options on that bench, particularly, Marquise Brown is...
I'm not sure why he came out of the lineup, to be quite honest.
101 receiving yards last week. Yes, he's a bit boom and bust, but he's playing with the number one QB on par in the league. So last year's MVP, let's put it that way. I think Patrick Mahomes is probably the better QB, but only just. So I think that may be a little bit of an error, but at the same time, those Cardinals at the top. Say Kyler Murray is the lock to the door, as it were. If he plays well, I think that they've definitely got a chance. If he doesn't play well, then there's again a lot of, I don't know if average is the word, but just a little bit above average. So you've got Kupp and Thielen both playing, away in, especially for Kupp, in a reasonably tough matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Chubb and his backfield committee. Who knows who's going to be the guy week in, week out. Drake's going to be a stud. The flex is, boggles my mind. And the Bears D, well, I don't think that Daniel Jones played unbelievably well, but he still managed to get the score. And
against the tough Steelers D too, I think, where they were just...
That's right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they didn't really play overly well last week, and that was against Matt Stafford. So is there any reason for them to play well at home against a QB that's a similar sort of mould? Possibly not. So is it hard for me to pick a winner here? Yeah.
Well, while you think about it, then it's clear for me. Well, not clear, but I think the route to victory is less muddy than Tom's Tyrants for the reasons we already spoke about having to fill out that roster. Outside of Adams, there's no one really at the moment you're too confident in, I think. But I think that can change. It's just based on week one and
definitely
what we've seen. It's not a guarantee. Meanwhile, you are gold. You've already mentioned the Arizona guys. They've got the upside. I think Chubb is going to be fine, and then Thielen, he'll garbage time or whatever his way again to points if he needs to. I think Howard comes out by game day 2, so I'm basing this off that. But yeah, I see a win for your gold here.
Yeah, I see. I think that it might be close, but I think you're right. I think that that Tom Stones has a lot to rely on with their top two. So if you're not relying on those two, then you are gold it is as well. Yeah,
there you go then. Penultimate game of the week then we have, and you're involved in this one, Chris. It is the Dream Team against Forge Flyers. The Dream Team take on Forge Flyers in week 2. The Dream Team coming in off of their win in week 1. Meanwhile, Chris losing a nail biter at 0-1, searching for their first win, but they are projected to get it at 96-92. Looking down the lineup for Forge Flyers, let's see what's changed here. You brought Edelman into the lineup for James Conner, who is injured with that ankle injury. Could still play, one to keep an eye on. Have you changed around anything else, Chris? Nope, don't think so. On the other side, for Viv, Chris Godwin is in the concussion protocol right now. AJ Green comes into the lineup for Deshaun Jackson, he's having a rest day, and Kareem Hunt comes in as well for George Kittle, who, well, I'd be shocked if that wasn't reversed, assuming Kittle is playing. So, Chris, you are rolling with 10 personnel this week, unlike you. 1 running back, 4 receivers, and on the other side, Viv is going with 30 personnel. The history of this matchup all time, the dream team over here on the left, I think. Yeah, 6-5 in favour of the dream team. Chris, do you think you're going to win it?
I think that my path to victory is maybe a little bit easier than last week. Now I know what to expect. Yes, it's not your typical Forge Fires team. The reason why we've gone like this is because there hasn't really been, didn't really go for many running backs in the draft. I'm looking for more touchdowns this week. If we don't have many touchdowns, then we're a little bit stuck. I hope that there'll be a couple of big performances here, mainly from Derrick Henry, who, when he plays the Jags, always runs over the Jags. But from one of the 3 receivers, I don't really care which one it is. But I'm looking at Terry McLaurin there. My man Terry, he's going to do okay. This playing in Arizona, they're going to be. It's going to be a lot of ball. So it's going to be a lot of opportunity, and hopefully that'll be the case. So DJ Chark again got a touchdown last week. Wasn't targeted as much as perhaps we thought, but so you never know. And brought Edelman in just in case Connor can't play. He's sure to get volume. Yes, playing in Seattle, but hey, you've always got to have that out ball. So yeah, I'm hoping for a better performance this week. We always forget Lamar Jackson at the top there, so but he's bound to play well. Steelers D playing Denver at home. Hopefully they'll pick Drew Lock a few times. So that's it. Pick the lock. On the other side, then, Viv's team is reasonably scary. So I'm not expecting miracles here.
You think so? I feel differently this week, but go on.
I don't know, because I know that Godwin's probably not going to play, and if he does play, he's going to be restricted. But as you say, there are some incredible guys on the bench that can come in and fill for him. But that running back, Russell Wilson, and the 2 running backs, and Kareem Hunt, of course, they may well add to a target that will match my receivers at least. And that's the thing that I'm a little bit scared of. Yes, I know that Johnson's playing Baltimore. Yes, I know that Elliott's playing Atlanta, and they're more likely to go through the air than through him, but he's certainly going to get an awful lot of targets, as he usually does. But outside of that, and the 49ers are playing the Jets, which should be a lol fest. So, it's there are definitely shoots of optimism there for Viv. Maybe that's because I'm coming off a loss and I'm not feeling it, but we'll see. But yeah, I think that Viv has definitely got some personnel there that can do some damage. Yeah,
I agree. The team, the names on paper are obviously outstanding, but I think outside of Russell Wilson and Elliott, they're capable of good games, but it's tricky for me. Wilson, and Wilson's got, I would say, a fairly tough matchup against New England as well. They had a lot of opt-outs on defense, but I think they still showed in week 1 it's still a pretty good defense. Johnson's playing Baltimore, so I think he could get game scripted out quite easily and not do as well. Elliott's, he's probably going to do well, certainly if they're playing with the lead. But then beneath that, I don't know what the dream team are at the moment. I've got to figure Kittle comes back in, but at the moment I'm going to assume he's not. Green, Godwin and Hunt, Godwin might not even play as well, doesn't exactly inspire me with a lot of confidence. Yes, the Niners are going to do well against the Jets. On your side, you've got Lamar Jackson. I think the Patriots are going to have to throw more, so Edelman's probably going to be relied upon more in the game. You think back to the Super Bowl where the Patriots beat the Seahawks as well, and he was involved a lot. We've already said about Derrick Henry. DJ Moore, I think he'll be fine. Again, it's going to be harder for them to run. Teddy's a competent quarterback, and Chark, he, you know, if they're losing by a lot, he wins. If they're not, he's the number one receiver, so I think it's fine. McLaurin, again, it's a similar thing to Chark, really, for me. He's going to be facing Patrick Peterson, but given the nature of he is the only option in that passing attack, they're just going to throw it to him. So I could see a dream team win, don't get me wrong, but I actually think this is yours for the taking, Chris, and I'm going to go...
I hope so, Nathan.
Right then, last game of the week, then we'll do a quick debate corner, and I will spend half an hour thinking how I can shorten these episodes. But we've got, for the final game of the week, it is Dream Team, sorry, no it's not, it's Gridiron Gang against Bucking the Trend. Gridiron Gang faced Bucking the Trend. Gridiron Gang lost in week 1. What else is new? So they're searching for a win. Meanwhile, Bucking the Trend feeling good, leading the league at the moment as the number 1 seed. But based on projections, that probably won't last for long, as they're projected to fall 97 to 89. Looking down the lineups, Cam Newton currently in at quarterback over Carson Wentz for Gridiron Gang. Michael Gallup also in over Will Fuller. Kenny Golladay was not practicing today due to that hamstring that made him miss the game last week, so remains to be seen on him. On Bucking the Trend side of the ball, they are unchanged at the moment. Philip Lindsay has turf toe. Would be surprised if he played this weekend, but you never know. History of this matchup, let's take a quick look. Gridiron Gang against Bucking the Trend all time. Only faced each other once, and Bucking the Trend took that one. Will Bucking the Trend continue their hot start, Chris?
I hope so. I mean, I think that you look at both QBs once again, and they're both in reasonably challenging away matchups. Although, again, Matt Ryan screams. Shoot out there. I think that Cam will continue to be solid, and you can probably rely on him for a 20+ point game every week. But again, it's whether or not he's the guy scoring the touchdowns or it's his running back scoring them, and that's going to be interesting. Yeah. Otherwise, that's it. You know, you look in there. Eckler and Barkley on paper is that's a very formidable 2 at running back there for you. You've got solid options with Woods and Lockett. The Cardinals D should have a decent day against Washington, you thought, and then Dwayne Haskins is still, it's not the most capable, but he's certainly showing signs that he's getting there. And if Gallup can get on board with that shootout, then you're on for a winner. On the other side, Mike has some real playmakers in there.
Yeah.
We saw Josh Jacobs go mental last week, and I don't think that's going to stop, especially again in prime time against the Saints. Knowing John Gruden, he's going to want to put on a show in the first game in Vegas, and he's going to be the focal point of that. Hill and Metcalf. So again, we said earlier on, one and the same sort of things. They are a big game player, and it doesn't take much for either of them to score big points. I don't like the Chargers D this week against Kansas City at all.
No,
I don't like Marvin Jones against Green Bay. In Green Bay, and Hilton didn't do a great deal last week. However, he is playing Minnesota at home, and they got gashed last week. So
they did.
I think that because of the big game displays, I think that Mike's team probably has the edge this week. But it could be a bit more of a close run thing as we saw last week, and it all depends really on how your big names do.
Yeah.
The Cams, Saquon, and potentially Eckler as well. But don't discount Lockett in that display. Any receiver that plays with Russell Wilson, is always going to be slated to play. Well in fantasy wise, and so you saw last week that your receivers did score big yardage totals. So with a few touchdowns added in that, potentially at least one touchdown per receiver, you thought that that would be a hell of an improvement. So yeah, it's going to be close for anything, but I think that the combination of Matt Ryan, Metcalf, Hill, and Jacobs is probably going to be better than anything you can put out.
Yeah, no, it's certainly hard to look past, and you already mentioned about Hilton. He's got a soft matchup with Jacobs. He is facing a really good Saints run D, so he's obviously not going to go for 32, but he's still probably going to have a decent day. The only worries, you already said about Hill. Maybe we see a bit of what happened in week 1 where, teams are clearly trying to take Hill away. He's still going to get a bit, and he only needs one play to make it worth it, but the Chargers D are good. And DK Metcalf obviously facing a very good Patriots secondary as well, but the same you can say for Tyler Lockett. And, I might put Wentz back in. I haven't decided yet. If Galladay's, back, I might get him in there as well. I still might get Wolf Fuller in over Gallup or something. I don't know. But Mike's team did very well in week 1. And there's no reason to say they won't do so going forward. I think I'm going to have hopefully a bit of positive regression considering the lack of touchdowns last week, and Barkley did nothing against the team that just sold out to stop him. But I'm going to go with bucking the trend as well to continue their hot start. So there are the previews. We will do a quick debate corner, and then we'll leave you on your way, dear listeners. So John Burkout, would you please escort us into debate corner? Thank you. Do we need to tip or no? Okay. Fine. Okay.
Always.
Debate corner this week. Real quick one. What did I phrase it as? I wrote it down. So I phrased it as, give me the team you would think are most likely to get back to winning way or get to winning ways. So the team most likely to win of the teams that lost last week. And in a similar vein, but not phrased in a bad way, which team do you think overperformed, shall we say, in week 1 of the winning teams?
Okay, so the losing teams that we had, you are Gold, Pat Stan, my team, Ben Necessities, Tom's Tyrants, and yours. I think definitely Ben Necessities are the team that didn't deserve to lose and will win again this week. Whenever you score 110 points, you're obviously a good team, and you have to be able to capitalise on that the week after. I think they should do so this week, or certainly give themselves a good fighting chance of doing so. In terms of those that overperformed last week, the teams that I can tell you that certainly did not overperform last week and to get the win were Badernay's bucking the trend, Ixan, and the Dream Team. So that leaves me with Ross's team and Phil's. And I think that Phil's team did sneak by with 88 points. However, they obviously left a lot on the bench, and if they do that again this week, I'm not sure they're going to be quite as they'll be let off quite as easy. I think perhaps that maybe Phil's team for the second one, and your dad's team for this first one.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to go with Ross as the team that surprised the most. Coming out of the draft, we were pretty much unanimously agreed this looked like the worst team. We all thought Auto Draft did not do it kindly. I mentioned about it's week 1 and preseason rolled all into one, so I don't think we need to read too much into what happened in week 1 just yet, and I'm not sure Ross's team is as great as it may appear to be on paper or based on that week 1 performance. But they are still good, don't get me wrong, they're still capable of a good day. On the other side of that, really, I mean, I think there's quite a few of the teams that lost last week that are more primed for a rebound. I think we've really got to look at. I would have said Pat's team if it weren't for the Thomas's injury, but I think I'll go with your team, Chris, because like you say, one different player or whatnot, or one field goal, and yours is the difference between a win and a loss there. You have got Lamar Jackson and some other nice pieces, so I think you'll hopefully return to winning ways soon as well. So that is a marathon episode of the LOC Report, of course, we wish you the best of luck in your games this weekend, unless you're playing me, of course. Yeah, you better hear that, Mike. Bench all your players now. No, I'm kidding. So we'll be back with you next week. Otherwise, take it easy, and we will see you later. Thanks for joining, Chris. Hope you have a good one too. Catch you later, listeners.